Welcome back, everyone, to Security Weekly. This segment is sponsored by Black Hills Information Security, the leaders in penetration testing and active defense. Email consulting at blackhillsinfosec.com to request a quote today. And by Tenable Network Security, the creators of Nessus, the world's best vulnerability scanner. Jumpstart your security program today and evaluate Security Center CV, the continuous monitoring solution. Visit Tenable.com for more information. And by the SANS Institute, the most trusted source for computer security training, certification, and research, even. Visit SANS.org to learn more. A couple of quick announcements before we get started. Make sure you go to Larry's class in Las Vegas, which is after all of the Black Hat Defcon B-side stuff. It's a SANS conference in Las Vegas, September 14th through the 19th. He'll be teaching wireless ethical hacking and defense. Make sure you visit our store, shop.securityweekly.com, to get all of your hack naked gear. We've got lady shirts, men's shirts, black shirts, red shirts, you name it. We got it in all your hack naked needs. We also have glasses, which we're hoping to get up on the store as well. Those have a very special logo where if you look very closely, it may or may not have a nipple on the hack naked lady. At Defcon, I'm going to talk about the Defcon booth now. We will be at Defcon in the vendor area, which I believe will be in the Paris Hotel in relation to where Defcon happenings are. Make sure you go find the Defcon vendor area. We will have Hack Naked t-shirts for sale. We'll have some Black Hills Information Security zombie shirts to give away. So when you purchase a Hack Naked shirt, you'll get a free zombie or whatever theme John comes up with. We have some zombie ones. You might be coming for the new ones. So you get a free shirt, basically 2 for 1. They're on sale for $10 cash, $12 credit card for Hack Naked shirts. We're bringing some shot glasses with us, so we'll have some shot glasses for sale. We have vaping e-liquids and vape devices as well for sale. We're kind of testing the waters there. And we'll have some cigars for sale as well. So we'll kind of fulfill some of your other vaping and cigar needs as well. So make sure you visit our booth at Defcon in the vendor area. And just stop by and say hi. I'm not saying you have to buy anything. Stop by. Say hi. It'll be fun. So, what are we going to talk about now? We got to talk about hacking cars. What the... I mean,
have to?
Yeah, well, it was like there were two things in the news. There was the Jeep hack, and there was the... What was that website that got hacked? Not LifeLocked. They're in trouble, too. But
Ashley Madison?
I like how you pretend you don't know the name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ashley...
Yeah. Play it off well.
This website I've never heard of before. If I did have an account, you would know because it got leaked, right? So let's talk about the Jeep hacking thing first. So what now, Samy, you said you're presenting about some car hacking stuff coming up at DEF CON. So what is going on with the Jeep hacking?
Oh, man. I mean, whenever Charlie Miller and Chris Valsek come out with something, I'm always super excited. Those guys are awesome. And, you know, anyone who hasn't seen, the video with, I think, Wired's Andy Greenberg should definitely check it out.
Is that the one where they went on the highway?
Yeah, they went on the highway.
Yeah. Robert Graham was talking about that, I think kind of knocking it for, you know, scaring the crap out of a reporter.
Yeah, no, I think he was defending them because, you know, I believe these guys probably are getting a lot of flack because they did do this on a highway, right? They did it on like a public highway. However, I also think that probably brought a lot of additional attention to the whole story and the fact that all these connected vehicles that we're using, you know, the vehicles that are coming out every day are like more insecure than, you know, the vehicles before. It's like as soon as we add technology to protect them and we think we're making it harder, it's actually easier to break into. Right.
So have they disclosed any details about how they're doing this yet?
I think they've only disclosed the basic stuff, like, you know, that they're going in through CAN bus and ECU, but they're doing it wirelessly, which is super cool. Because those guys did a demonstration 2 years ago where they were physically hooked in a car, I believe it was a Prius, and they were hooked in physically, which was an awesome attack, but now they're doing it wirelessly. I think they were doing it from their house, you know, and they showed in the video.
According to CVE, it's via the cellular network that connects the car.
I'm sorry, it's what network?
The cellular network?
Cellular network.
Right.
According
yeah, so they're
to
going...
CVE.
Correct.
So do most cars today have basically a cellular
Absolutely.
connection built in, like for things like OnStar was one of the first ones I think to use that.
Yeah.
But even
oh, absolutely.
you know, and I love
OnStar,
yeah.
I mean,
well, I love where they put the buttons, right? Because it's right next to like where the lights are and the sunroof. And then like you're driving and you're trying to figure out like how to open the sunroof, and I accidentally push the button and it's like calling like Acura and stuff. Yeah. I'm like, no, I didn't. I'm like, can you just remotely open my sunroof for me because I'm trying to drive?
Some people probably do that, right? Open my sunroof. They think it's voice activated, and they're like, wow, they're like the text to speech is so good.
So most cars have a cellular modem.
Sure, like
built in.
BMW has this built in.
Yep.
Benz has this built in. All GM cars have it built in. Obviously, Chrysler has it built in. And unfortunately, there's no like a lot of these don't have over-the-air updates. So with this one, same with the Range Rover bug. I believe about a week ago, you have to take your car in to get it fixed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure about this one. I have to double check.
Yeah, and actually reminds me of what happened with Chevy last year, and that they ignored until very recently. A good friend of mine, Jaime Restrepo, known as Dragon Jar, he found that the Chevy vehicles that were being sold in Latin America were using Chevy Star. They were using this web service that you could connect, and whoever coded that web service did an awful job. So he was able to pinpoint locations of all of the cars.
Yeah,
he was able to turn on the microphone on the car. He was able to stop the car remotely. He was able to lock the doors, and he even did a demo when the car was going. He was able to turn off the car, lock the doors, and then activate the alarm so it was beeping and the horn was going off. And says, "Can you imagine this? Let's say you're a politician. You bring up the microphone. You're hearing everything they're saying. You actually have a bug inside of the car, permanently built in by the manufacturer." Or if you want to do a kidnap, you just turn off the car, lock the doors, and you have your target there for you. You just open back the car. And Chevy was ignoring it completely for months and months until he actually gave the data to Charlie Miller.
So and then you're saying Chevy knew this?
Chevy knew it. They were ignoring the emails. They were ignoring everything until they gave it to Charlie Miller. And they went, okay, now we'll fix it. We'll fix the service. Don't go public. We'll fix it. The thing is, it's been, at least in Latin America, it's been public for over a year.
So and was it ever fixed?
Yeah, they fixed the web service.
Okay.
That you connect to, because you were actually just proxying commands into the web service. Sure. And then what they did is, since the laws are a bit different over here than in the U.S., they were able to build their own femtocell tower to have the cars connect to it, and they just start hacking the cars via SMS messages.
Awesome.
So, but now consumers that are not like security people, I guess, they keep up on car hacking, they love this kind of feature. Now, they don't understand the feature, but they know that if they happen to lock their keys in the car, that they can call someone and they can unlock the doors remotely.
Features are great. No, I mean, the features are useful. They just need some added security.
I wonder if any of these cars, if it's possible to even disable the cellular modem inside of the car.
That's a good question.
Of course, just talking about that can get us in trouble. There was some article that was, talking about the DMCA as it pertains to this and reverse engineering your car.
Oh,
we've touched
on that. That's making me so upset.
Yeah, I was going to actually bring this exact point up, because Sammy, I really want to get your opinion, because much of the research, especially with cars, has been not public, specifically because of the DMCA. And we're only just starting to hear now a lot more is starting to come to light. So I'd really like to get what your opinion on the DMCA and in particular. Does it impact you in your research, and how do you see it chilling security researchers, let's say, outside of the automotive market?
Absolutely. No, this is what some of the car manufacturers and other companies are trying to do or trying to say is that that they can use the DMCA to prevent researchers, like myself or others, or anyone who just purchases, let's say, a vehicle. They're trying to prevent you by law from reverse engineering or actually like opening, say, pulling out the software from the chips inside of your car. You know, it's like they won't let you open up the hood and pull some information out. What's scary about this, I mean, is that it has legal implications for security researchers. It means that whenever I'm taking a chip and I'm trying to see what's inside, so that if I find a vulnerability and I can, even let's say, even if I do it entirely privately, if I do private disclosure to the company and no one else, that's illegal, right? Even if I were the type of person who would go to the company, not tell the public, so that the company would have the chance to fix it for their consumers, even though likely other people are already exploiting it, but irrelevant. If I just went to the company or I did responsible disclosure and gave them 90 days or 6 months or something and said, hey, you know, I'll be disclosing this in 6 months, but until then you can fix it privately, here's the information. Well, it would be illegal for me to actually do that research in the first place, despite the fact that I had just went out and purchased a $30,000 car. What they're saying is that, no, you didn't buy a car, you bought a license to use the car, and that's it. So what these, you know, essentially what they're trying to say is you're not allowed to look inside, even though you don't own it. You don't own it.
Yeah, it's like I bought Microsoft Windows or I bought a new car. It'd be the same thing. I bought a license to use it.
Correct. And you're not allowed to. But with Microsoft Windows, I mean, is it illegal to reverse engineer it? I don't know.
I'm not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be one on Security Weekly TV.
I do pretend sometimes, but it always gets me in trouble. So I'm upset about that because, you know, there's security researchers like Charlie Miller and Chris Valsek who are doing all this interesting research, and this might hinder them, right? There are people who are maybe not as bold and who will not do this research because they're fear of reprisal from these companies. Or, for example, they might work for a company which says, you know, you can't even go into that gray area, you know, as, you know, someone might be doing security research for a company, and that company might restrict them from doing additional research in their own time, unless it's like very open waters. So it's actually hurting consumers, I believe.
Yeah, and so, well, that's the EFF's case. So that was the article that I read. It was from ThreatPost, who had some excellent coverage on it, and said that the demonstration of this risk is giving them some ammunition to lift the DMCA restrictions on car hacking because of basically a public health risk associated with that. I'm told that a final ruling is due in the fall of this year. So.
Yeah, we'll hear that. We'll hear about that soon. You know, I'm anxious to hear about what that says.
Okay, was that it to everyone, or was that to just me, Chris? Sorry, that was just to us because we all kind of stopped. We did. Did you hear that in your ears, Sammy? Did you hear the voice in your head?
I heard the voice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should have given you that a heads up. When you come on the show, there's voices in your head. Sorry.
Oh, cool. No
worries. Well, there already were for some of us. They just sound nicer.
They just sound more like Chris when, yeah. So, Chris, you sent out some information to our Twitter followers about the BMW i8. Gotcha. Well, you can't open the hood on an i8?
I was wondering how to do that before, but now I think my life is...
Does it require like an iPhone screwdriver or something?
Interesting.
So it's like a missile launch, basically. You know, it's interesting because we talked about how this might prevent other researchers, and I think we need to define that term better, because if you're suggesting that we're going to hack a car on a live freeway at speed wirelessly, guys, that's not research. That's a stunt, and that's dangerous.
But that's irrelevant from the DMCA. Are we moving on from that topic?
I'm going to move on from that because you said something else I thought was interesting, which is the sort of backlash from this might prevent other researchers from doing it. I agree.
DMCA thing, yeah. The DMCA.
I think no. Look, I'm sorry. If you don't think there's more backlash coming from this,
I'm sorry. Wait, are we talking about we're not talking about the DMCA? Is that correct?
I'm talking generically about stunt hacking a Jeep at 70 miles an hour on a highway.
Oh, okay.
There's backlash coming from this.
Yeah.
While it may, quote, chill research, which, you know, it's 100 degrees here. I'm cool if we chill it a little bit. Flip side, did we just embolden a whole bunch of morons to go out and do stuff because, you know, in the name of research? If so, then that's reckless on a lot of levels.
Are you saying? Well, I think what you're saying then is that people are going to simply follow what other people do. I mean, I don't think that's like a good. I don't think that's relevant. Like if someone says, "Oh, I see someone else doing this, I'm going to do that too." I mean, that's everyone has their own independent responsibility to do something or not do something, regardless of whether others are doing it. You know, whether that was okay what they did, it doesn't like if Eminem says, you know, go like take a gun and do something, you know, it's your own responsibility if you actually do that. I like his music, by the way. But yeah, whether that was dangerous or not is another story. You know, when I was saying this would scare researchers, I was talking about the DMCA, which has nothing to do with this, with what Charlie Miller has done.
Yeah, but hopefully we're just calling it a stunt, right? If we're calling that research and we're not clarifying that that's a bad precedent,
well,
then
two things
we're
happen.
running down a slippery slope.
Well, two things happened, right? They did research, and they also did a stunt, which received a ton of publicity, which will actually get so many more people to take their Chryslers in to get it resolved than had they not done that.
Yeah, what's the risk reward? I think I side more with Samy on this one. That while, and I don't know if this was necessarily stunt hacking because I don't think they did it to get attention in general.
Oh, you're kidding, right?
I think they did it to get attention from the right places because knowing both of these researchers, their intentions are very good. And, you know, quite frankly, you know, Charlie and Chris really don't need much more attention. They presented at Black Hat before, right? I mean, in their defense. But I think this got attention from the right people with the right intentions to raise awareness among the general public and raise awareness against car manufacturers. And look, Mike, the flip side of that is there are groups working with car manufacturers to actively fix these problems in a way that you would probably more approve of, right? Going to the individual companies, educating them, educating the board, working with them. But that doesn't get, like
no, you know,
it doesn't get people to take their Chryslers in.
I actually don't. The oddity of it for me is I don't have a strong position either way. I don't think there's a right way to do this, and therefore I think that was the wrong way to do it. I'm actually looking at it. So now we got a whole bunch of people that are going to go to their Chrysler dealerships. When's the last time you had a good experience at any car dealership that now you're going, yeah, I'm going to go in and demand them to answer questions about stuff that there's no shot that they understand or that they can allay my concerns on? How big a risk is this really? Who else can execute this? What else does this mean? And so there's a whole bunch of complications around this in particular. Do I think that sometimes we should force people's hands? Yeah, I accept that. Absolutely. Fundamentally, it comes down to this. We use the word researcher, and yet it's interesting because there's two. You can research, right? I have kids that are in school. Most of us have kids that are in school. They have to do research. So the way that we use the word research is great. But if we look at cancer researchers, pretty certain most of them aren't running around injecting people with stuff and like they work in very controlled environments with budgets, with oversight and review boards and all sorts of other stuff. Yeah, no, there's always going to be rogue people. I'm not striving for perfection. What I'm suggesting is we use the word hacker, then we say security researcher, then we say somebody who did something that some people liked and other people didn't like, and then the government has if anybody who watches this pays attention, I'm a big fan of limited, small, please leave us alone government. Nobody's going to dispute that. So I don't want a government response to this. But yet that's exactly what's going to happen, and that doesn't lead to anything that's good. So we don't like the DCMA, but we want the government to enforce something. Oh, all I want is some freaking consistency in our ideology and our approaches.
Well,
so all I'm pointing out is the inconsistency.
I think the medical.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
I think the medical analogy is kind of bad there because I think people's reaction when your doctor comes to you and says you have cancer is different from when someone comes to you and says, "Well, your car may have this thing that let people
make it a
get
public
into
health.
it."
Then make it a public health thing. Then make it. I'm actually just. Show me another example of research where people go do whatever they want on open systems, on open freeways, and on interconnected multi-use systems, and I'll happily say, great, then let's go study and adapt from that. We're not doing that. We want the best of both worlds. We want to do whatever we want, call it research, apply whatever pressure we want, call it research. If someone doesn't agree with us, then they're just chilling our research, and we don't like that. But we don't have to apply any
semantics on the word research. I mean, there were two things that happened.
Yes, we certainly are. And we had better get really clear on what constitutes research versus what constitutes breaking the law.
Okay, but like if someone's like I might do research and then I might go watch a movie, right? Those are two separate things. I'm not doing research at the movie. When these guys did their demonstration, that was publicity, that was press, that was marketing, that was more press to get information. Sure, absolutely, that was stunt hacking. That doesn't in any way negate the actual research that they've done and provided information to Chrysler, so that Chrysler and Jeep now have a patch to resolve the issues they've demonstrated that anyone can now go get for free today. That if they had not otherwise done that, people would not have available to them for free. This is now, they've actually solved the problem. Now, I understand whether they've done it in a dangerous manner or not. That's irrelevant to the fact that they have done research. They've demonstrated issues that Chrysler did. That Chrysler
Your
has not
method
known
is
about.
absolutely relevant to the outcome. I mean, so we're the Wild West. This is Machiavellian, and as long as we get an outcome that we've deemed good, we're good.
I think you're trying to talk about what the definition of a researcher is, and it's like going back to like when I was 14 and trying to like talk to other people on IRC about what the definition of a hacker is. I mean, true. I think it's irrelevant. It's like, who cares? They whether you don't like what they do some of the time. Sometimes they do some good. Maybe sometimes they don't. I don't know. They still have solved some problems.
Then you can't be upset if the DCMA comes against a quote researcher, or you can't be great, or a CFAA or anything else. That too. You can't cry that the government's killing research if we can't define what a researcher is.
Whoa, that's no, you have different laws for different things. You don't say, okay, well, because you've done this thing incorrectly. Let's say they did something incorrectly. If they did this one thing incorrectly in the way they demonstrated this problem, you can't say, well, anything else you do is wrong, and you're not allowed to do anything else. The issue with the DMCA is specifically that you're not allowed to inspect something that you own, that you don't actually own it anymore, that when you purchase something, when you go out to Best Buy and I've been doing keyboard research. I went to Best Buy and I bought a keyboard. It's illegal for me to take that keyboard that claims that it has encryption on it. It's illegal to me to pull the firmware off that keyboard that I purchased with my own money and have in my house and demonstrate that there's an issue with the crypto inside. That's illegal. Like the DMCA can potentially say that you can't do that. And you can't tell people that when they believe that they have an encrypted keyboard, they actually don't. Because the only way for you to figure that out is to go buy one and dump the firmware. They're trying to say that that's illegal. If I demonstrate it like going 90 miles per hour down, on a car in a freeway, if there's a problem with that, and clearly you have an issue with their demonstration, which is fine, maybe there should be a law around that, not about me going home and demonstrating that there's a problem with the software or the hardware, the firmware that I purchased. Perhaps we can put a law around the fact that, okay, if you're going to be doing security research, you can only do it under these conditions where you have to be traveling at, on private roads if you're going to be doing car research. Absolutely. Right. Like I totally see your concern there, and it's totally reasonable. But that's a totally separate topic from the issue with the DMCA. And I can totally also understand a law that would come down and say, hey, if you're going to be doing, let's say specifically car research, or you're going to be doing research that has other people around you that could be affected, that you can't do it. You have to do it in a controlled environment where the likelihood of someone else getting hurt or injured, will not happen.
Is it research if you don't have a control and documented repeatable methods?
Well, that you're talking about outcome. Dude, research is
talking about process.
Research in a science experiment.
Research investigation. I mean, why don't we look at the definition of research? Hold on, I'm going to go on Google.
Yeah, research and a science experiment are two different things, Mike.
What you're talking about is outcome. Research, noun, the systematic investigation into and study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. Whether the conclusion is reproducible or not has nothing to do with whether it's research. And them driving down the street driving down the freeway. That wasn't research. That was demonstration. Those are two separate things entirely. But you don't have to call them researchers. You can call them whatever you want.
You can call them whatever you want, Mike. I think we all agree on that one thing. You can call them.
All right, listen. You know what? I have enjoy the laws that are coming, gents. It's good.
I mean, the laws are irrelevant. Like this DMCA thing happened a long time ago before the article came out, well, 2 days ago.
Yeah, we've been fighting that fight for 15 years.
It's when Nintendo was suing people because they said that they were extracting the firmware or the data off of the Nintendo platform, right?
And there was wasn't there a Russian researcher that was detained? Was that around the time when, was that one of the first instances of
the book? Was that when?
Yeah, it was the ebook thing.
I was 14. And
The Alcomsoft guy. Yeah.
Yes, Alcomsoft, thank you. Yeah, so there have been cases that don't involve cars, Mike, about this for a long time.
Mike, I totally see what you're saying in regards to in demonstrations being safe.
Look, I'm obviously worked up today. All I'm suggesting broader is that I am tired and concerned of people using the word researcher and hacker interchangeably, pushing for the ends justify the means. I see it from both sides. I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I'm literally in the middle, kind of agitating against all sides of it to say, define the terms, define the process. What makes a researcher? What makes it research? What makes one outcome legitimate versus not another? And there's nothing I can point to that's consistent. And because of that lack of consistency, we create a lot of hype and a lot of drama and a lot of stuff that I think ultimately is going to bite us in the ass. So that's it. That's all.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't care what people call it. I'm sitting at home trying to spend my time doing things I enjoy,
but the courts care, right? So I'm looking at it.
Well, I think that
they don't care what it's called.
Well, I think that one of the things that I hear is Mike cautioning us, right, is that sometimes we use methods to explain vulnerabilities that, while there are some good outcomes that could come from that, there are some negative consequences as well. And when there's legislation out there, and we do something like a stunt hack that involves a car, there could be negative consequences to whatever you want to call it, security research hacking, that evolved from that because of that stunt. Now, the positive thing is that there are some, positive things that happen, that people actually fix things and fix their cars. And that's, I firmly believe, because I know the people involved, that they have good intent. It's my belief that when we talk about these things, a lot of times we know the researchers and we know that they have good intentions. So our opinions are certainly biased in that area, especially when you know the people that are involved.
I'd say respect to both you, Mike and Paul. I think we're in a complex industry or area, right? This area is complex. It's not cut and dry. It's not binary. I think the cool thing is, at least a lot of us, whether we even agree with our methods or not, we are at least trying to go for the same thing, which I think is positive. And
I think sometimes people's intentions are bad, and sometimes I have sympathy for that. Like in the Ashley Madison case, that was clearly a website for people that are, take your morals or values for whatever they are. I look at it as there was a website promoting people do bad things, right? That go against most people's morals and values. And there was a hacking group that wanted to expose that. What were their intentions? I don't know. Clearly, though, they did something illegal. I think on the scale of what we've seen from stunt hacking to this, there's kind of a fine line. Samy, you may know that line probably better than any of us on the show right now.
I think we all make the line as we go.
Yeah. But this is a case where you're like, well, their data got leaked. Sometimes we have sympathy for the person whose data that got leaked. Here, I'm having a tough time with it because, the website was for people who were cheating.
Well, the attackers did.
Not everybody that was on there was a cheater.
Yeah, so I think there is something interesting to say about this. Well, so I thought about doing research on stuff like this in the past, and I was having dinner with someone, and they brought up a really good point, specifically about this website and the fact that I think as Mikey said it, not everyone on there is actually a cheater. There might be people who are on there in a relationship that have agreed to actually, go onto this website and use it because maybe they're in a relationship for some other reason, right? Maybe, at the time they're in a relationship to keep up appearance or whatever. that there are people who are on there because they don't want their social circle to necessarily know that they have an open relationship, for example.
Now, Samy, in response to that, the tagline of the website was this: "Life is short, have an affair."
Yeah, totally. It's made for cheaters. There's no point of that.
Okay.
But it's also great marketing. That the whole point is to draw you in, and that just shows how effective that tagline is. It gets you talking about it. It's just advertising. I think the morality argument to this entire conversation is somewhat irrelevant. You can't pass judgment on every person who uses that website, regardless what they use it for. It's a website. You can do the exact same thing about Tinder if you'd like. It's all the same stuff. What I do find interesting...
My wife said, did you hear about that website that people use for cheating that got hacks? And I said, Tinder? She goes, no, some other website.
But what I did find interesting about this is that the attackers allegedly put out their reasoning behind this, in that the website offered a service when you closed your account that you paid $19 and they delete your profile entirely, everything on there.
Yes.
What the attackers said is that that's not true, that they did absolutely nothing. Thus, they were forced to expose this, which is why they released the information.
No, they released customer information.
Correct.
That has nothing, what they're saying is they say you are bad, so I'm gonna fuck all these other people over here.
I don't think the ends justify what they did, but that's what they stated, that was their reasoning why, that the only way to force this is they want the company to shut down because they lied about them actually
their
deleting
privacy
user profile.
in data handling policy. That goes back to my earlier point that you're more likely to give someone your information if they tell you exactly what they're going to do with it. In this case, Ashley Madison was saying if you pay us $19, we delete it when they weren't. So they were lying about how they handled your data.
That's the most hypocritical statement ever, though, right? They're saying, because you told me you were going to stop providing my information to others, you didn't. So I'm going to provide everyone else's information to everyone. That's exactly what they're saying.
That's a good way of looking at it, yeah.
It's
that might make sense in other scenarios. That does not make sense in exactly what they're saying. They're specifically saying they said they would stop providing my information to the user base, to the consumers who use this. And because they're not, I'm going to release other people's information, whether they want to take that. If you had this feature, then everyone would be protected because I wouldn't disclose all this information.
Right.
I mean, that's just hypocritical. I do understand.
It's too bad I didn't hire like a security researcher for a couple hours up front, because they probably could have figured it out. Then we would have avoided this whole situation.
Mike, you are literally salty tonight. I mean, in all senses of the term.
Yeah, sorry.
You're sweaty from the gym.
It was a hard workout.
You're salty, apparently. Your trainer was extra hard on you today, wasn't he? Or her?
It was a hard workout. It was yeah.
You clearly didn't get all your frustrations out on your workout.
Apparently not. Yeah, none of this is personal. I just apparently have some bottled up aggression.
Have you tried punching a wall yet? I heard that helps.
I like my knuckles. I still need to type.
Mike, let's talk about some of your stories in there.
We don't need to. I probably won't handle them very well.
You just beat Jack Daniel.
Yeah. Have you been hanging out with Jack? Is Jack there visiting you?
Jack is a good friend, so it's possible I'm channeling some Jack.
No, you won. You won.
Oh, can we talk about pocket dialing?
I think we should. I think it's an interesting case.
So I had cargo shorts on, right? And I had my phone.
Talking about pocket dialing, not pocket pool, Paul.
Yeah, no. I had cargo shorts on, and I had my phone in the side pocket, right?
Yep.
And I was peeing, and I had accidentally butt dialed my mom. And she called me later. She's like, "Oh, you called before." I'm like, "You didn't hear anything, did you?" She's like, "No." I'm like, "Oh, because I totally butt dialed you while I was peeing."
Well, you had no expectation of privacy on that call.
I guess, I guess it could have been worse. I mean, my mom's my mom, right? So,
the case, and I'm not going to read from it. I'm paraphrasing from the memory of Skimmy. It's kind of interesting, is that basically an executive of an organization pocket dialed somebody back at the organization who listened in on the conversation, heard information, was listening to the information, determined that the information was actually of a discriminatory nature, took notes, And the call continued for like 45 minutes, 50 minutes. It was a long period of time. Heard a variety of things, took action against it, and they said, no, it was a phone call.
Mike, sorry. So did they record the phone call?
Only the last like 6 or 8 minutes.
Okay.
She summoned for somebody else at the organization. They brought, and I don't know why they mentioned this so specifically, they brought their iPhone over and recorded it on the iPhone. So there was a portion of the call that was recorded.
Okay.
And so the argument in court was, no. That was a private conversation, and the fact that the phone picked it up and relayed it to you is irrelevant, and I had an expectation of privacy. And
but also there are wiretapping laws potentially for recording
and they worked on that as well. They said there wasn't a consent given, and because
Right.
there was no consent, you couldn't be able to do it. And what they said was, no, you dialed the phone. You made an actual intentional connection. Even if you took no precaution to prevent it from happening, it's the same as intending it. And ergo, you have no expectation of privacy, and they allowed it to continue. I just thought that was interesting. Yeah, it is
interesting, and it's also state by state whether you can record it or not.
It's
right?
very true.
Yeah.
I mean, wiretapping laws are state by state, and they vary greatly.
And making the call, you can make the call that you want, but whether you can record it or not, you actually have, in some states, for example, I'm in California, both parties have to give consent. That means actual consent. Like when I call Time Warner and they say, we're recording this call for, I'm not sure why they record it because I don't think they use
quality assurance purposes.
Yeah,
is what
right.
they say.
As long as they declare it, they can record it for whatever they want. So that's why they've come up with something that sounds like
correct,
it doesn't hurt you.
That's consent.
Yeah.
That's consent.
So this happened in the federal court. It was an appeals court. It was in Ohio, and it was the chairman of the airport board in Kenton, Kentucky, which oversees the Cincinnati Northern Kentucky International Airport. Where's that airport physically sited? Is it in Ohio?
Not
or is it in
sure.
Kentucky? I can't remember offhand.
What did he say? Anything good? I mean, did they release the contents of what he said or no?
I didn't read a transcript, but basically she overheard Huff and his colleague talking about personnel matters, including the possibility the airport CEO might be replaced. The call lasted 91 minutes, and the woman stayed on the line the entire time. She thought Huff was discussing a plan to illegally discriminate against the CEO, a woman, felt obliged to record the call and report it. Now, this is the interesting point, because as Samy just pointed out, the wiretapping laws are very clear in the states, state by state. So this said SPA took handwritten notes for most of the call, but managed to record the last 4 minutes after a colleague brought her an iPhone. I mean, that was a specific statement that I'm reading back to it. And they actually did talk about the violation of a wiretap act, but the Wiretap Act apparently only applies if you have a reasonable expectation of privacy. And so what they said here is that you have to exhibit the expectation of privacy, which includes taking reasonable steps to ensure the conversation won't be overheard. Oh, and this is interesting. All right, so this is probably an interesting point. I read through this fast. He admitted, so the guy admitted in the deposition that he was aware of the risk of a pocket-dialed call and that he had previously made them. And they said, wait a minute, you mean you can lock your phone or you can do other things that prevent that? Did you take any of those actions? And he said no. And so they said, okay, so if they used the plain view doctrine. They said if you didn't draw the curtains in your home and somebody could look in from the street without trespassing, that's plain view. And so a pocket dialed call, if you've done that and you've not taken the appropriate precautions to ensure your privacy, like a reasonable person standard, then sorry, you don't have any. It'll be interesting though, because I think Samy raises a really good point. I'll be curious to see where this goes.
Well, I actually would agree. I would agree, and I would say I don't agree with a lot of the wiretapping laws. Like, I believe if you have a conversation with someone, just assume they're recording it, man.
Yeah.
Exactly. how many other hops are in between you and that phone call? It's probably getting recorded anyway. You should just have that assumption. And I think if we made that the law, like you can just assume that someone else is recording you without your consent, then we'll be more cautious and we'll make better decisions about the things that we say on the phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we hope.
I mean, yeah, it probably won't happen, but at least we have that information to make that decision ourselves.
Hey, so we don't want to leave WordPress out of our discussion this week.
Thank goodness. I was getting a little bit of WordPress withdrawal.
So a new version of WordPress has been released that addresses a nasty cross-site scripting vulnerability.
Is nasty a technical term, Paul?
That
is that like a rating?
That is a rating.
Like it's kind of like you don't have warp speed, ludicrous speed. Like you have nasty rating. Like this is it? But it's not plaid.
Like if it's not a big deal, it's like meh. Like there's a meh level of vulnerability, and then there's like nasty, and then there's like super
you have to say
nasty.
it funny to be like nasty. Like get the nasally nasty.
It's
like
nasty. It's nasty. Yeah. Anyway, that was our WordPress vulnerability this week. Yay.
But they fixed it fast, right? I mean, so what was the time from this? Because the thing what I like to point out is that when WordPress at the core is aware of something, they tend to move quickly from what we can tell. Did they do that here?
I think I think they are very cooperative with fixing this. Yes. From skimming the article. Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if I see anything on the timing. It doesn't talk about it. It just, yeah, it says that they did it. So I thought that was...
They actually removed a plugin. But so the plugin developer was quick to address the issue, however, it was actually fixed the same day. The latest version of the plugin was actually removed from the WordPress directory earlier this week. There's a minor licensing issue, and it's still available from its personal website. That's kind of interesting because there are you can get the plugins officially from like the WordPress repository, or you can go to people's personal websites and download plugin code. It's interesting that they actually pulled it from the WordPress store, as it were. I think they should do more of that, as we've talked about before on the show, Mike. Some of that might need to happen to help make WordPress security a better place, or WordPress a better place when it comes to security. I mean, Apple does that. Not that that's
yeah. I mean, we've talked about that as a model, right? I mean,
yeah,
they've created an ecosystem, and so the question then is, does WordPress either have or feel a responsibility to help improve the ecosystem? Mm-hmm. Whereas we've seen that the answers for Google and Apple were absolutely. But you know, there's mixed reviews on how they've done. So I like I said, a lot of times I just sit and ask questions, because what I'm looking for is something that's clear. I'm just looking for clarity so that I could repeat this to somebody else. I'd like to be able to walk into a boardroom and explain how it worked and have somebody go, "Oh, okay, cool, I got that. That's fair." They don't have to like the outcome. They don't even have to like the freaking process. I'm always interested in consistency. That's all.
What's interesting to me is you may, because we talk about WordPress so much, recommend that you don't run WordPress. Well, but what do you run? Drupal? Because Drupal had a vulnerability that was fixed this week as well. So, I mean, no software is perfect, right? And I think a lot of it comes down to your processes that evolve around it.
Yeah.
It's that age-old question we've asked on the show. Like, do you choose to use software or not use software based on its reputation in security? And Carlos was talking before the show about Flash and how we've kind of all made the conscious decision as security folks that we're going to, if not remove Flash from all of our systems, greatly restrict when it's run and have complete control over whether it's run or not. In fact, on all of our web properties, to the best of our abilities so far, and the process is still ongoing, we are doing our best to eliminate Flash completely. And while you may be watching the stream and saying, well, you require Flash to watch the stream, change your user agent in your browser to an iPad, and you'll be able to watch it in HTML5. Now, I'm not saying HTML5 is the panacea of security, but clearly it's got a better track record up to this point of not having the security issues that Flash has, being a client-based application with all those issues.
Well, that's a little crazy. I mean, as soon as, one of these other, browsers have one of these issues. We don't not use browsers.
Well, and
right. And we don't not use phones because my iPhone was rootable a couple.
To what extreme, right? Internet Explorer had 4.0 days this week.
Yeah, so
they were disclosed. Yeah. So what do you do? Like I said, I think it comes down to process, to how you use the technology, what other mechanisms you put in place for defense, and not necessarily basing all of your decisions on what software you use. Certainly, I've always felt that there's you do take into account track record, like Carlos was saying. I only Flash is kind of be gone from my world. I don't load Flash on any website anymore because it's just too much of a risk because of its track record. I understand that, but do you not use a browser? No, you still use a browser. But now we're talking about putting extra protections in place, which actually ties into another story about where there were an article comparing how security experts and other people do security. Security experts and non-security experts stay safe online. And it was just that. It's not that we don't use a browser. It's not that we don't use Flash, but we use two-factor authentication instead of trying to remember all the long random strings for all our passwords. We might use a password manager, and those were some of the differences in our process, not necessarily choices in raw technology that we're implementing.
You know, Paul, I gave you a shout-out last week. I was really impressed. I was at a conference talking about security, but the people who were attending it, I think out of the 500, 3 raised their hand that said, yeah, I'm responsible for security. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the first questions they asked when I just said, hey, listen, I'm here. What do you guys want to talk about? They asked about firmware. And as we go into the Internet of Things, what was my level of confidence with firmware? And I actually said, if you guys know Paul Asadorian, my confidence, unfortunately, is not high.
Yeah.
And we talked about it, and I actually talked very much about the need for us to make those requests and to find a way, like, hey, you guys aren't in security, and you're asking about this question. By the way, what a freaking brilliant question to ask if you're not a security person. So when we say people don't care or they're not paying attention, people do care. They do pay attention. To your story, I guess we will pull up a story. I thought it was interesting. There was a story on Slate that said, are the current cybersecurity measures enough? Professionals can't agree. Here's the short part to it. If you've been breached already, or you've witnessed how easy it is for somebody to attack you, your answer overwhelmingly is, hell no, we're not doing enough. This is all bad. If you're newer to it, you don't have the same level of exposure, you haven't been popped yet, your answer is, we good? What are you guys talking about? There's no problem there. That's
it goes back to
surprising.
Samy on WinNuke, right? Like, I got WinNuked, and damn it, now I'm interested in this security thing. And your answer is very common amongst security professionals that we interview on the show, Samy. So
cool.
Well,
also let's hope we can still investigate firmware with the DMCA, because that's the one thing. That's the one thing they're trying to restrict, firmware.
Yes.
Right?
Well, and just so we're clear, and I know I said it wrong, and I'm obviously kind of cranky tonight, but I'm not a fan of it. Like, I'm not a fan of a lot of these laws. Like, I don't think that they were written properly. I don't think that we understand the spirit or intent, and I do think it creates problems for us. I just, all I'm looking for is some level of consistency to it. So what I find just interesting in these things that we're pointing out is that we're at a place where people who have more knowledge and experience, right, the curse of knowledge, are struggling to communicate it in a way that people who have less knowledge and experience realize the value of that and then take action on it. And we wait until things get too far down the road, and I'm not going back to the Jeep thing tonight, but just too far down the road, and then we create these bigger crises. And I think at some point, this is why I keep looking for consistency. If we could say to people, hey, if you did this thing in the process, it looks like this, tastes like this, feels like this, smells like this, takes this long, costs this percentage of the project, but you get this benefit at the end result, I think we'd get better results. Not universally. Some people need to get hit in the head with a 2x4. I'm not against it. I'm just looking for consistency.
Sorry, Carlos, we got a little off track. You were trying to say something earlier when I was talking about software in Adobe.
No.
Okay, I wanted to make sure you had the floor before we end, because we're getting near the end of time here. So
no, I think what I was saying is that you were talking about track records, and you can see Flash, Internet Explorer, Java, and many of these other types of plugins, additional stuff out there that are causing these problems. And the thing is that there are solutions to it. For example, one of the things I noticed was all of the exploits said Emmet would block it. Or if you're using the one from Malwarebytes, I forgot its name, for exploit mitigation, it also blocks it. So there are solutions out there, at least for those that want to run it.
Don't want to run those technologies, yeah. And then those technologies are extremely popular, obviously. So
yeah, you can put click to run in IE and in Chrome for Flash.
Excellent. Well, everyone, thank you very much for coming on Security Weekly. Samy, our very special guest for this evening. Thanks for sticking around for stories. Thanks to our regular cast and crew out there on Skype, Mike, not Kevin, and Carlos for joining us. Of course, thanks to our production staff, who's got the great behind-the-scenes look Don't forget to come see us at Defcon. Our production staff will be there at Defcon, so you can meet them in person as well. So it's going to be good times. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We will see everyone next week. We're going to do an episode before we go out to Black Hat and Defcon and all the hilarity that will take place in the desert this summer. So we'll see everyone next week. Over and out.